what really turned the corner for me to think about micro resilience was some research that had been done on tennis players and why certain tennis players are the most winningest tennis players. So when you look at Wimbledon or the US Open, there's 100 players, but you're only reporting on a handful. And what puts you in that handful? And so this researcher was looking at what they did, and he couldn't find it. Certainly somebody, serves faster or runs faster. They have different skills, but he wanted to know what's the common factor that puts you in that top echelon. And he didn't see anything until he looked at what they did between the points.
Right.
And it's interesting because he never really published this study. So I had to go back to him and interview him and ask him, what was really going on there. And it's these micro behaviors that the players do between the points. And it can be little things like putting your racket in your non-dominant hand to rest your hand. And we're talking about 20 seconds, 30 seconds between each point. They had certain self-talk that they used. They got their heart rate down to an optimal rate. They didn't get distracted by the crowd. There were certain little micro behaviors they were doing. And so he wrote about that and talked about it. And now in tennis camps, they teach it. It's well known in the tennis world. But with the book Micro Resilience, we really wanted to take that idea for the rest of us in the world of work, or if you're working from home. How do you implement those little tiny behaviors between the points that help you to maintain your focus, drive, and energy and not get exhausted and wiped out as fast as your opponent or the other players?
I love that. Is it, am I understanding it as a way of kind of a reset of where you are, or is it something slightly different from just a reset?
Well, what do you mean by a reset?
I don't know. I feel like, so if I imagine myself playing tennis, I finish a point and I'm feeling, I probably finish feeling either elevated or not elevated, because I've either won the point and I'm like, I'm awesome,
yeah,
or
exactly.
I've lost the point, or I'm like, I blew it.
Well, either one of those things can be very distracting, right? So you're going into the next point, and if you're focused on, I messed up the last point, you can be very distracted. Or if you're so focused on, I won the last point, you can be very distracted. So it's about sort of clearing your palette between courses, right?
Nice.
Quickly, but doing it, you only have 10, 20 seconds to do it and to move into the next point fully focused.
Your work is the lemon sorbet in the mindfulness buffet of life. I love that.
I'm stealing that. Right now, I'm stealing that. I like that.
That's perfect.
For me, as a ski racer, you have, turn, 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 turn is what you're doing. Yes. And you have the same problem as the tennis players, is you need to always be very focused on the next turn. You need to, what they say, are you a skier?
I've skied. It would be an overstatement to say that I'm a skier.
So when you're racing, you have to stay early in the turns. And that's a whole thing. If you start slipping later and later, it becomes impossible to recover from. So you want to stay early in the turn. So there's certain things that you're thinking about doing. And I would be so focused on the next turn and what I'm doing. And you can't dwell on the last turn or what went wrong or what went right or anything. By the time I got to the bottom, I would get over the finish line and I could not remember anything that had happened.
Right.
Because it's like you're throwing it overboard as you go.
It really feels like a mindfulness practice in many ways, which is like you keep resetting to the here and the now, and you be in the moment, and you let the past go, and you don't over anticipate the present to allow yourself to be able to make the turn, both literally and metaphorically.
That's certainly part of it in sports is, and I did use my own meditation techniques and things to do that. For the resilience, we are looking at different things. So we're looking at things that help your brain, things that help your physiology, things that help you to not trigger your fight or flight instincts as much. So we looked at research in a lot of different areas and took the things that had an immediate impact. So that's why we called it micro. A lot of things that help your resilience are things you do habitually. So getting regular exercise, eating right, getting enough sleep. There's a lot of things that if you didn't do them all the time, it wouldn't, just one night of sleep isn't going to help you. You need to have a habit of good sleep, right? So we micro is the opposite of that. That's what we called macro. We wanted to look at things that if you did it today, you would get a benefit today. And that immediacy is great. It's like catnip for people, right? We all like immediacy right now.
Hey, it's MVS here. If you've picked up a copy of my book, The Advice Trap, well, make sure you go to theadvicetrap.com. Not only is there a process for taming your advice monster, but there are downloads on how to ask a question powerfully well.